Hey, this is your host Brian, and I'd like to introduce you to our special guest today, Paul Beauchemin of PI Profits Agency. Paul Beauchemin brings deep business experience into the private investigator industry. He is president of PI Profits, a results-oriented marketing, sales, and customer service agency dedicated exclusively to private investigators. He is the creator of the Genius Minds of Investigation project, and also previously created and launched Sherlock Docs, an online tool to help PIs create reports and share them with clients using 21st century technology. Today we're going to talk about 4 bold-faced lies about private investigator marketing that are costing you a fortune. Paul, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Pleasure to be with you, Brian.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Paul. And for those of you listening, we're going to be touching on a few myths of the PI marketing world. Just like once upon a time, people believed that the world was flat, that elephants were afraid of mice, and that shaving your hair caused it to grow back even faster. And some people might still believe some of these things, but really they were all eventually disproven. And while those myths were rather black and white, the myths of sales and marketing have far more potential to have gray areas about them, where there could be a bit of insight or truth mixed in with the myth. So that's why we've got a few myths to run by Paul, our private investigator marketing expert, and see what checks out and what really is just a myth. So, Paul, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, that's excellent. Our first myth is you should focus on getting your brand out, or you should use your name as your brand. What do you have to say about this myth?
Well, Brian, every now and then there's a buzzword that hits and everybody talks about it for a while, then it disappears and comes back. It kind of cycles up and on. And branding is one of those words. You know, the word brand originally originated with livestock owners. You know, to show ownership of their herd, they would heat up an iron rod with a unique design and burn the fur and flesh of an animal so that others would know who it belonged to. And then somehow this got transferred into a business word. And for a long time, brand was simply a logo. And then they added the letters ING to it. Now it becomes an activity. So there's a lot of confusion about what branding actually means that most folks who try it end up wasting enough money to feed a small city. Some private investigators feel that getting your name out is branding. I guess it could be, but I can't think of a more colossal waste of your hard-earned profit than simply running ads with your logo on it or a slogan or something like that. Of course, media salespeople love to sell this to you because you buy it and you buy into the falsehood that you need to run an ad over and over again in order to pay it off. Kind of bogus. But don't get me wrong, having a good solid brand, a good solid reputation that people trust, talk about, and perceive is really priceless. But it's a holistic process. It involves much more than simply slapping your logo on a billboard or a direct mailer. You know, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and GM have billion-dollar marketing budgets to pull this off. And when I look at revenue for most PI firms, I don't think that they have that kind of a budget. So when you spend $1 of advertising, you need to measure response that puts at least $1 back into your pocket. And add with your logo and taglines, you're not accomplishing this, but many PIs have bought into this falsehood. The branding is really a long-term process that involves the entire customer experience, from the time they see your first ad to their thoughts of your customer service, you know, and how you deliver your reports. When you do all these things exceptionally well, you begin to create a branding and market that's priceless. But don't buy into the lie that you can brand yourself by just putting your name out there. In fact, for a small business, branding is probably the absolute worst use of your dollars. Almost all private investigators should be focused not on brand marketing, but on direct response marketing. And direct response marketing allows you to measure your results, whereas brand marketing doesn't allow you to measure results, so you can waste a lot of money there.
So would you say that a lot of marketing agencies then, because you mentioned them, and that's what they try and sell you on, are people like Coca-Cola and GM, do they use them as their examples to say, hey, look, at these people, they branded themselves, and so now they have all this success, so that's what you have to do, and we can help you do it?
Right. Well, Apple is really exceptionally good at this right now. I think their latest ad is this touchy-feely ad, and you have no clue, if you didn't know what an Apple product is, what the ad is about. I mean, it's just soft responses, just trying to get you identified with good feelings, and really not to sell you any of the benefits of what they have to offer. So
I can understand that. Well, and that is because they also have an established brand. I remember listening to somebody on marketing, and they had spoken about how a person or a commercial had showed this attractive woman walking across a room in scantily clad clothing, and it turns out it was a commercial for carpet. And so it's simply because they're trying to associate carpet with attractive woman, and then they try and get you to associate that with their brand, when really I think that a lot of times, because people don't show what they can do for other people, as we've spoken about in previous interviews, there seems to be a disconnect, and so branding becomes less practical and less useful overall until really you've established your own ability into the eyes of the people you can already reach through marketing and what have you.
Right. Branding takes a long time of delivering excellent results. Before people like Apple or Coca-Cola or whatever, these big companies have been able to use branding, they had to deliver high-quality products and exceptional service, and over a period of years to do this. And it just doesn't happen overnight. And to try to do this for a startup or small business is really just way out there in terms of spending your dollars.
So would you say branding is something that tends to naturally occur when you really deliver exceptional service to your customers?
Yep, that's right. Once you build a reputation and you start to get a buzz about your service, you'll start to build a natural brand, and you can, establish that by, writing papers or articles for magazines or trade journals and things like that. But those take time to build up, and just trying to advertise your way to a brand won't work. And so it's just a bold-faced lie, as I call it.
So now that that's dispelled, what should they focus on? Would you say that money should go, that they would be spending these people to try and build their brand? Should they then focus it on marketing instead?
Well, yes, they should focus it on marketing, but as I mentioned, direct response marketing. So,
and I think that, I'm sorry, Paul, go on.
I was going to say that the second, you're going to mention that the second lie.
Oh yeah, the second myth is that marketing tends to cost a lot of money, and to make more, you need to spend more money, which kind of creates a catch-22 in the eyes of the business owner. They think, well, I need money to spend money to get more money, but I just don't have the money. So that myth right there, what do you have to say about that? That marketing costs a lot of money.
Well, first off, I have yet to find a private investigator that doesn't have at least 5 under-leveraged facets of their marketing system. By under-leverage, I mean this: without spending another penny in marketing in that particular facet, you can get more results. For example, let's look at Yellow Pages. If you go to Yellow Pages and look up private investigators, and you just put your thumb or finger over the name of each agency, you probably can't tell one from another. So by simply changing the wording in the ad you may already be paying for, you can increase your response rates by 10% or 100% or more simply by better copywriting without spending the money. Another example is one of the things that I hear over and over again is that private investigators don't answer their phone. And so simply by answering your phone calls and converting them into clients at a higher rate, you're leveraging, that phone call and generating more income without spending a single penny. So, these are a couple examples. By learning how to upsell clients for other services and utilize marketing strategy to help you do that, you're leveraging that client and making more money without spending another penny. You get my drift. For example, most of PIs get their clients through referrals, but they don't use that as leverage. They could get clients by asking for referrals, for example. So before you buy into lie that you need spend more money on advertising or pay-per-click ads or whatever you're currently being sold, you have to make sure that you're leveraging your existing investment before you dump more money into a never-ending.
And I think I get what you mean here, Paul. And what you mentioned about marketing agencies, a lot of them will try and convince you that you need their help or you need this specific thing that really, sure, there are plenty of things that can help them. And I know from talking to you in prior interviews and all the wisdom you've departed, especially for our listeners, that they could get tremendous value, not just from our words here, but specifically from working with you. And so someone like you can really help them, but there are agencies out there who work more, I guess I could say generally, and they try and sell you on things that you probably don't need when you can save a tremendous amount of money working on what you're already paying for to optimize it in order to bring in more customers with what you're already doing.
Right. Well, the key to doing this is what I call direct response marketing. With direct response marketing, every time you test a variation of your ad, you can measure results. Once you establish a clear winner, you don't stop and say this is the be-all and end-all ad. No, you go out and you test new copy. You call this is the baseline ad that you've established as a winner. And you go out and you test new copy in your ads. You change the color of the text. You change the size of the button to see if you can beat the baseline ad. And you may find that some ads that were great kind of decline over time. So you always need to be testing. And the key, of course, to testing is you have to keep track of this with a return on investment spreadsheet of some kind.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to look at not only different methods of advertising, look at each advertising type and measure how well it's doing against another type, and then you have to measure that over time. So I'll give you a quick example. In advertising, it's usually a very highly emotional trigger word that gets the prospect to become a client. And if you look at MAPIs, their websites, or their Yellow Pages ad, you see the words infidelity investigations in their websites. Okay? Well, it turns out that you can triple your response by changing the word infidelity to cheating. The cheating spouse triggers a high emotional response in people that the word infidelity doesn't touch, because infidelity is a very neutral word, whereas cheating is an emotionally charged word. And, so you can test those two variations one against the other, and you can see for yourself, what is working. And you can see that simply changing a word in, Yellow Pages from infidelity to cheating cases, you can increase your leads and not cost a penny. So marketing doesn't have to cost more. A lot of improved results can be done just by improving copywriting and understanding that it's emotional triggers really that get people to buy your service or hire you for a case.
And I think, especially when you talk about emotionally charged words, I think a lot of it comes into natural human language. When I think of the word infidelity, I think more formal. Like it's a formal thing that you're talking about. But if you think about when people are talking to their friends, they don't say, oh, I think my wife might be infidelitous. Or, my husband might be infidelitous. They think, oh, I think my wife might be cheating on me. And a lot of it comes down to natural language and finding these natural language words that are also emotionally charged can really, really help a marketer out. And like you said, since they're already paying for a certain level of advertising, could be banner ads or pay-per-click or what have you, just changing the words around and being sure to track. And anyone who knows anything about marketing or is serious about it, they will definitely start tracking their results.
Right.
Yeah. When I first got early into marketing, I didn't know anything about it, so I made that mistake. But tracking is for anyone listening, tracking is absolutely paramount. You have to track. But with these what you're talking about, these transformations, you can grow over time. You could find out what works, and then you can depart that knowledge like you are to me and to our listeners. So they don't have to go through all the hardships that you had to. They can learn directly from you in order to get that leg up and start getting more results sooner.
Right. That's right. A lot of it, there's 150 years of copywriting expertise out there, and it's really a science that's been well defined. And few PIs have, they come a lot of times from a law enforcement background, sometimes military backgrounds, and they're really good at investigating, really experts in the area of what they do, but they haven't been well trained in a simple thing like copywriting. And knowing how to copyright is probably one of the highest paid careers a person can have. There's people like Dan Kennedy that get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to write a simple ad, and so it's good to keep that in mind. That for simple changes in the copy that you put out in your ads can have great improvements in results without spending more money.
Exactly. And so since marketing is what you need, we went through branding, and that's not what you need up front. That tends to just happen as a result of great service and great marketing. So then marketing brings in the clients or potential clients, the prospects. And so once you have them there, that leads us into myth number 3, and that is you need to hard sell prospects in order to close them. Is that true?
This one drives me crazy. Think of the last time you were trying to make a buying decision and the salesperson kept pushing you. How did that make you feel?
It pushed me away from them.
Push you away, exactly right. Did you instant lose in the intelligence priorities or decide to buy just because they asked for sale? But yet, think of the last time you considered buying something. You weren't quite sure if it was a good fit, but you thought you would explore the options. How did it make you feel when the salesperson pushed you then? If anything, like I said, it pushed you away from the sale, not towards it. It's really pretentious and naive to think that every person who calls or stops in needs to become a client of yours. The key to successful closing is to help the person determine if you're a good fit for each other or not. By assuming the sale, in a lot of salesmen are taught you have to assume the sale, and that really annoys people and also reduces your chances of having a good conversation that will set up a win-win long-term relationship. It's kind of a bit of a paradox, but as soon as you quit pushing people to hire you and begin trying to determine if you can really help that person, your sales numbers will soar. Yet many people are really still teaching old-school push-to-the-sale tactics that simply don't work anymore and really are an insult to your prospect's intelligence.
And I think a lot of that also comes from, say somebody gets a job as a car salesman, because I've done that in the past, and that's part of what they teach you. And then they say, if you don't get these numbers, then you're out of a job. And so then you're convinced that I have to do things this way, because if I go back to the boss, then they're going to say, oh, why didn't you do things this way that we taught you? And then they're going to fire you anyway. And so it creates a dilemma for anybody that's been in sales. And I think a lot of people have at least tried sales. So that's just what they tend to expect, because they've been into a position where a company is, I guess I could call it old school, and then they try and hard sell you on something. And so they think, oh, well, if I go here, if I have to buy this, they're going to try and hard sell me. And naturally, people are repulsed by it, rather than when you're trying to help them, when you're looking out for their best interests. And you as an individual, as a business owner, when you feel, in my experience, it seems like when they feel like they're not necessarily indifferent, but that they don't need your business, it doesn't feel desperate, that they could say, hey, it'd be great if you worked with me, I want to help you out, and this is how I think I could help, but, it's all your choice. And I don't feel hard sold, and I feel much more compelled to work with somebody like that.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to look at that. My son was in college, and he joined somebody called Cutco, which sells knives. People go out door to door basically selling knives.
I've done that too.
You've done that, okay. And, it's very scripted as to exactly, the prospect is supposed to say X, and then you're supposed to say Y, and on and on. And, if the prospect doesn't say X, then, they know what to do. There's a wonderful book by a person named Neil Rackham called Spin Selling, S-P-I-N, Spin Selling. And it's not scripted, but it kind of gives you a path to follow. And I found it very applicable to private investigators and what they do because, S stands for situation. You basically ask the prospect the facts about the situation. PIs always like to know the facts, okay? And then the P, of course, stands for problems. And so what you do is you ask the potential prospect what their problems are, what the frustrations, what the pain of the situation is causing them. So it's a very natural thing to do is, once you know the situation, ask what the problems are. The I is for implication. And so what you're doing at this point is you're trying to help the prospect uncover the implications of his problems and help them amplify his or her emotional need to solve the problem. So if you dig into somebody's problem and you get further into it, basically what happens is the person's pain, their frustration comes out. And, that's the implication. Oh my gosh, this is, if my husband is cheating on me and, he tries to get the kids and what's going to happen? I'm going to lose, custody of the kids. I might never see my kids. So you get deep into their pain and frustration. And the N stands for need payoff. And here you get the prospect to tell you about their explicit needs and the benefits your solution offers rather than forcing you to explain your benefits to the buyer. So usually we're saying, oh, this is our benefit. We can do this. I'm experienced. I got 20 years experience in law enforcement, and I've got all the latest GPS equipment and, camera technology. I can do this and that. And instead, you kind of want to turn that around to have the prospect say, yeah, I need someone with really great surveillance skills, and, I need someone that can, track somebody with the GPS or something. And so you get the buyer to basically state the benefits that you can offer, and it's like they're selling themselves. With these questions, they probe for the explicit needs. So this is the approach I use, trying to get new clients and find the pain, help them realize the benefits I can provide them, help solve their problems. So I think if anybody's really interested in, how to sell or how to educate people in their office to sell, I think buying spin selling and reading it and studying it is really probably one of the best investments you can make.
So that is, in your opinion and in your experience, that's probably the best sales approach you've found thus far.
So far, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've done a number of things in my life, too. I was in multi-level marketing, 25 years ago. I tried that, and I learned about scripted sales approaches and things. So this is really not scripted. It's really a natural process. Neil Rackham, he demonstrates is really very effective in his book. If you read the statistics.
A very natural flow. And real quick before we move on to our next myth, I will say when I did work with Cutco, I worked with Vector Marketing. They do that. They give you the script to go by. And I find that when I just sat down and talked with people, and I learned this from Napoleon Hill's The Law of Success, this salesman who's a complete novice, and he just went and he happened to talk to a person, he got to know him, and I always went way over my appointment times, but everyone I worked with, all my clients, they never complained, and they were always happy to just talk to me and tell me their stories, and 9 out of 10 of them bought from me. I always sold 8 or 9 out of 10. And they just, when you get to know them and you're a person that they like and enjoy, they buy from me. And it's no mystery that people, friends want to do business with friends. They want to do business with someone they trust and like. And so it was really easy for me that way. So that's just a little thing to run by our listeners for consideration, which leads us into our fourth and final myth, is Yellow Pages. And Yellow Pages used to be the most effective marketing medium. Now it's the web, the internet, and you need to spend lots of money on a website, pay-per-click marketing, SEO, etc.
Every time I read a statistic put out saying that the highest percentage of clients come from something like web traffic, I shudder. Can you guess who provides that stat? One of the funny things in this industry is that almost all the other marketing services I see to basically focus on websites, SEO, social media marketing. So without data, how would you determine if that statistic is real? See, if you're only doing one thing, of course it's going to account for most of your results. private investigators that test other mediums report numbers that are quite different. It used to be considered accepted fact that, Yellow Pages create the most response to PI advertising dollars. Now, no one believes that, and PI's become infatuated with websites and social media. I see a lot of that. The funny thing is, we did a Google consumer survey and had over 500 responses from people that actually hired private investigators. And what we found is that both Yellow Pages and web searches, or web searches, accounted for an identical percentage of how people decide to hire a PI, and that percentage was pretty low. It's only 10%. So, anybody says you need to spend a lot of money on the web is missing 90% of what their potential clientele is out there. So, what's the top way people hire PIs? It's referrals. And I wonder. I've talked to many private investigators, and so far, out of over 100 ideas, that I found one that had a systematized referral system. That's it. Almost none of them do it. A lot of them will say, yeah, I get my business from referrals, but it takes a long time. They don't have a system to go out and do that. So the good news is that, something like referrals doesn't cost much money to implement, and, an orchestrated referral system is pretty cheap, and you're not stuck. But a lot of these things are also pretty cheap if you're, like a pay-per-click. It's fairly cheap, and you can test it. You're not really stuck in it for very long. Websites and Yellow Pages, they have their place, but I would challenge private investigators to go out and test other mediums and ignore, what somebody's trying to sell them. If they're selling one thing like website design or SEO, I would try to look at a bigger picture. See, this all boils down to the use of direct response marketing and knowing your numbers. If you have data, then you know how to operate. The problem is that so many PIs, are not. They were not math majors necessarily, but they don't spend the time looking at data, getting the numbers, and seeing what works, testing, constantly testing. You have to test to see what works and what doesn't work. And again, that can only be done with direct response marketing.
Have a little bit of a brain hiccup there.
Nope, that's all I was thinking. I was just, it's just basically guessing until you test.
Well, I remember reading a statistic. I might actually butcher this statistic, so please forgive me if I'm proven otherwise. But it turned out to be, those people, like when you walk through Costco and there's the people standing there and they give out the samples, that when they offered, I think it was a flavor, like a flavored punch, and there were 6 different flavors to try from. Then they offered one that had 18 different flavors to try from. It turns out, I think it was like 30 to 60% of people, there were more, 30% to 60% more people actually picked up a punch to try it when there were only 6, because people get overwhelmed when they have too many options. And I think that's what a lot of people feel. They think, oh, what am I going to start with? Yellow Pages or pay-per-click or SEO or website. And then, like you said, they just have to start somewhere, and that you just have to get your foot in the door, get your feet wet, however you want to see it, let the rubber hit the road, and you have to begin. And then after you actually start, it gets tremendously easier because you thereby have a direction to continue in. But it's just being able to get the courage to begin, and that's when they're going to start seeing some sort of results, whether it's, the marketing didn't work out, or the marketing's doing good, let's expand on this. It's all a learning experience. And like you said, they need to track it. Absolutely need to track it. And that's exactly what you're getting at.
Yep, exactly. And for example, a lot of times PIs will run pay-per-click ads sending it to their website, and they really don't know what it is on their website that is working or not working. A better way, if you're going to use pay-per-click, is just create a separate landing page that you can have, for example, 2 different landing pages, and you can send half the ads, to one and half the other. and you can test the wording on these 2 landing pages and see which words attract the most leads and prospects. And it's a simple A/B test, and you can't get that if you're just sending people to your website. You will not get the information, and so you'll end up wasting a lot of money. And somebody's going to tell you that you need you need to do SEO because obviously things aren't working right. So it gets very confusing to people because others try to complicate it so much, and they don't really show the data. And you have to have the data.
And that's I'm afraid we're just about out of time, Paul. And this has been a great interview. And if you are listening to this interview and you'd like to learn more about how to grow your private investigation business, Paul has generously offered a free 30-minute best practice marketing investigation briefing for listeners of this interview. In this briefing, Paul will help you identify what might be the biggest holes in your marketing strategy, as well as the biggest opportunities for additional profit in your PI business. Keep in mind that spots are limited and will be made available on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're interested or even just curious to learn more, then sign up for one of these spots and reserve a free one-on-one marketing briefing call with Paul at no cost at easypiprofits.com. Once again, that's easypiprofits, all one word, .com. And Paul, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Great talk with you, Brian. Look forward to it again in the future.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day, Paul.